Congressman Ken Buck out of Colorado put a resolution in front of Congress that was trying to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Joe Biden from the presidency. So this resolution says, in part, calling on Vice President Kamala Harris to convene and mobilize the principal officers of the executive departments of the cabinet to activate Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to declare President Joseph R. Biden incapable of executing the duties of his office and to immediately exercise powers as acting president. So there was a lot of chatter on social media about this resolution, and I think a lot of it was misinterpreted that a simple resolution could actually invoke Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution in the 25th Amendment, when really this seems to me to be just a PR stunt, because Section 4 of the Constitution in the 25th Amendment says, whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. And I've highlighted that section, or of other such body as Congress may by law provide, because obviously Congress has not legislated according to the 25th Amendment, and so it's only the cabinet that may invoke this. So is this just a PR stunt, or what exactly is Ken Buck getting at? Well, Ron Coleman is an attorney with the Dillon Law Group, and he also hosts Coleman Nation, a podcast, and he joins me now. So Ron, what's going on, do you think, with this resolution? I think it's just a PR stunt.
It's just a PR stunt, and the tip-off is the magic words. Calling on. Whenever you see calling on, you are seeing or hearing words that indicate the rest of this sentence is meaningless. It's just a way of saying, here's what I think you should do. I understand what Ken Buck's trying to do. Let's put it this way. A PR stunt is perhaps an unkind way of describing it. He is using the political machinery to make a political statement involving a political issue. But it is one that is not particularly more than that. It's, in other words, it couldn't have any legal effect because, as you point out, there is no enabling legislation under the 25th Amendment that has been passed. Now, if he really wanted to go that route, he should introduce legislation to establish a body to begin that process. But I think we know very well why he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, but I think, Ron Coleman, that actually would have been a better path, because then you're forcing Democrats to vote against that and to suggest that it is just the cabinet, who clearly are appointed by Biden. They're part of this whole DNC apparatus, that are not going to invoke the 25th Amendment, which should be used only in very extreme cases. But I think we have one here. And so you're right that calling on doesn't mean anything. It's just a resolution. And hopefully this passes Congress, that at least a majority of Republicans will say, yeah, we're calling on the cabinet, even though we know they won't do anything. But if Ken Buck were to introduce enabling legislation under the 25th Amendment and try to convene this type of body, wouldn't that be a better shot across the bow for Democrats?
It would be, although it would have to also be passed by the Senate. I don't think the president would have to sign such a bill, because it says that Congress shall establish that body. I don't think there's anything in the language that we just looked at that says it has to have been in place beforehand. I think in fact it was well drafted precisely to provide for a situation where the cabinet is in cahoots and has not acted as it should. For example, in the case of Woodrow Wilson, where he was basically disabled for the last couple of years of his administration, and his wife was president of the United States. The cabinet knew about that, and they liked their jobs, and they didn't do anything about it. So Congress could set up such a board, and that still would not enable them to remove the president by a majority vote. But what it would enable them to do is, and again, this actually requires a supermajority, it has to be 2/3 vote. So under our present political alignment, you need more than party lines in both houses to vote in this direction. but it would at least put the heat on the cabinet in a way that is not as acute right now.
Yeah, and certainly a way that would be forcing them to take a look at this in far stronger of action by Congress than this mere resolution that's just calling on Kamala Harris. I mean, she can cackle and then just ignore it, which is likely what she would do anyway if it passed, if the resolution passed. But this just shows why it's so incredibly important to follow the rule of law in the U.S. Constitution. If it were so easy to remove a sitting president by a simple majority resolution by Congress, then Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have taken the time and the means to try to impeach Donald Trump twice. And then you need that 2/3 majority in the Senate for a conviction. And interestingly, the current House majority hasn't gone even that step, Ron Coleman, to try to impeach Joe Biden, which is the constitutional framework for removing a sitting president. Why not?
They have no guts. I mean, identifying high crimes and misdemeanors, the mere fact that the Justice Department will not prosecute anyone named Biden for any serious crimes doesn't mean that there isn't ample evidence of high crimes and misdemeanors committed by Joe Biden. If the shoe were on the other foot, I don't think either of us has the slightest doubt that if it were Donald Trump, they would be using materials, the compromised materials that have been found to at least go through the impeachment process. But Republicans, and listen, there's something to be said, and if this were a Twitter conversation, I know that I would be killed and lose scores of followers for saying it, as you have. There's something to be said for adhering to the rule of law, even when your opponent doesn't. Because if you don't, you're basically governing by street brawl. And we can't win a street brawl.
Yeah, really well said, Ron Coleman. And this is why the rule of law has to be enforced and the U.S. Constitution has to be objective, regardless of partisan politics. And you're right, I've lost a lot of Twitter followers, but guess what? I'll continue to speak the truth. We'll be right back.